Willow, Season 5, Chapter 15, One Last Mistake. I'm no hero, but really, I mean it. This is no situation of the vestments of greatness being thrust upon those least willing. The goals I had set for myself in life were simple, if ambitious. I was to become a great chef, world-renowned, in fact. A lucrative and popular chain of luxury restaurants would bear my name, and I would travel between them, instructing my chefs and regional managers on how to best express my culinary vision. You'll recognize this as a dream devoid of self-sacrifice and corporeal risks. The only gambles I would make would be with my daring sauces and challenging bakes. For a while, Willow offered a diet version of that dream. I have the one location, and my pool of admirers is far smaller, but no one contests that my cooking is second to none in town. I get to try new things and perfect what I already know, unchallenged. The part I wasn't prepared for, and for which I'm not always sure I'm suited, is the life-risking heroics of the Dufour mantle. Not to mention that, when it was my life being put on the line, I could be somewhat comfortable with the danger. But that was at a time when I felt I had so very little to lose. But now, I've grown attached to Willow, the cafe, the people, the friends I've made here. I have a brother in crisis, waiting for me to help get him back on his feet. Even those whom I feel I might have lost are only friends with fences to mend. All of this passes through my mind in the matter of a second, a torrent of ideas pushed through a high-pressure hose. What a short span of time, but enough to make me miss my opportunity. If there was a moment to act, to throw my body between that of the cat and raccoon being sacrificed to a demon, it slips between my fingers. In a way, it's a choice I make, a sad decision not to give my life for those animals. And it's a decision I immediately regret. William, being a cat, is quick to land on his feet. Claws extended, his back paws find solid traction on the asphalt. He doesn't make a full escape, as I would have expected, but instead scurries to a safe distance before turning around. He hisses and growls, back round and tail puffed to twice its size. An orange little demon all his own. Brioche is far less agile. Her dexterity is in her nimble fingers, not the acrobatics required for a graceful landing. She cartwheels through the air, landing in a huff on her side. Quick to right herself, it's not enough to escape the massive paw of the demon dog. Too late to do anything of substance, I finally spring into action. The hellhound is but a closing of its claws away from crushing my precious Brioche, and there is nothing I can do about it. Even if I have time to reach the monster, what am I going to do? I lack Eric's strength to wrestle the beast, and even if I could, I know what good that did my brother. Still, I sprint. Maybe I can distract the monster, bargain with it, or even cajole it into releasing Brioche. Like a cat that has found an interesting bug, the hellhound pushes the helpless raccoon around under its paw. Searing spittle drips from the demon's jaws, keeping wet its massive fangs. Head tilted and nostrils flared, the monster takes a generous whiff of the terrified Brioche. It then tosses her aside. I think and hope that it's seen me. My shoes slide on some loose gravel before coming to a stop. The muscles in my leg tense and my joints lock, ready to pounce in the opposite direction. Can I even outrun that thing for more than a second? No matter. If it goes after me, perhaps seeking vengeance for the cookie dust trick, I'll be ready to flee, and maybe atone for my prior passivity. My eyes seek Brioche to ascertain her condition, but all I see is a bundle of gray fur being dragged away by an orange cat, ringed tail dragging in the dust. All right, demon, I think. It's just you and me. Except it isn't. Stepping between the demon and me with eerie calmness, Horace Mitchell walks out of the shadows. He, too, is no hero. One hand to his side, fingers clawed with early signs of arthritis, and the other pulling at his jean jacket, he's in no position to fight. Not that this is the old man's plan. He's here to die. "I'm sorry, Miss Dufour," he says without turning his head away from the demon. I tried to feed it anything but what I guess it really craves. Mr. Mitchell, cats and dogs and hamsters and snails," he keeps going. "Even the pets of witches. Nothing will sate Wrath's hunger. But a promise is a promise, and I swore to Meredith that—" The old man doesn't get a chance to finish his tirade. Instead, the next sound to come out of his mouth is a wet and bloody gurgle. Where the demon took very little interest in brioche, perhaps having already found raccoon flesh unsatisfying in the past, it wastes no time digging into Horace Mitchell. Literally. The old man is punched to the ground, falling flat on his back, a powerful demon's paw thrust into his abdomen. The monster moves its claws within the open bowels of the twitching old man, like a child exploring a new texture. It seems uninterested in Horace as a person, or even a victim, reveling in the slick pleasure of blood for its own sake. The violence is quick to return, the demon stomping on Horace's arm, crushing it with an audible snap. I grab the wooden spoon in my apron, taking it out to wield as a weapon, holding it high above my head. But what am I supposed to do with it? There's no saving what's left of Horace, and with William and Brioche gone and hopefully having found a safe hiding spot, it's only the demon and me in this dark back lot. What happens when it's done rolling around in blood and gore, a dog in a puddle after rain? Will the wrath be cooled, or will it boil anew for more prey? I look at Horace, his face more surprised than tortured. He seems to be mouthing something, eyes pleading in my direction. "Save me," it looks like he's saying, but there's something not quite right about that. Against my better judgment, I take a step forward and hold my breath. I lean in, struggling to catch his words from between the wet splashing blood and the occasional cracking of bones. "Save it. Save it." The monster is elbow deep into his torso, cutting at muscle and pulling at ligaments, and the old man still wants me to try and save this demonic beast. "Please." An impossible plea from a man who should be dead. No thought for the rest of his menagerie. No plea for his own pets to be taken care of. Only this final breath request for a damned creature to be granted peace of some sort. There's no time to figure this out here. No good in coming up with an answer now. I walk back a few steps, letting the shadows swallow me anew. Dragon senses my intention and follows suit. The night will be no hiding place from the hellhound, and the only safety I can hope to find is in the distance I put between us. Annabelle sits on the counter of the Aquillow. Dragon, the dog, is lying in her lap as she plays with his big floppy ears. The dog doesn't seem annoyed, but also remains unimpressed with the attention. Meanwhile, I'm in the kitchen, toiling. On any other night at this time, I'd be cooking and baking, preparing for the day ahead. Having Annabelle with me would serve as welcome company. "Aren't you supposed to be taking that dog home?" I ask, hands deep in ground meat and spices. The metal bowl on the counter tips and bangs under my irritated efforts. "That's what you asked me here to do, but I think we both know I'm not going to. Not yet." My fist closes on the meat, pulling it from the bowl only to throw it back in, an expression of my growing anger. Anger at myself for risking Brioche and William, for letting Horace die, and for having failed in these duties inherited with the cafe. "Get those animals home, Annabelle. Then go back to Jordan's place." "Yeah," she says, putting Dragon on the floor and exchanging him for Ophelia's cat. "That's gonna be a negative on that. Ophelia's gonna have a fit when she finds out I've had her cat for this long without telling her." thin, nimble fingers scratch the orange cat behind his ears. William doesn't seem to mind one bit about delaying his return home. The fresh salmon I gave him and extra attention appears to suit the arrogant feline just fine. "Since when do you care?" "I've got enough people pissed at me," I answer, checking on my hot watercress dough. "It's probably best I don't further antagonize the nastiest witch to ever knit a sweater." "You're going to have to deal with her at some point." I cast a glance at Annabelle, frustrated with her attitude. Brioche has climbed into her lap and flopped herself atop an uncaring William. Both are now receiving scratches and pets and are delighted for it. "Oh, I will." There's a bite to how I say it, an intent to threaten that barely scratches the surface of my feelings on the matter. I still remember how Gulliver pulled at the sweater she gave him. I don't lay claim to know how Ophelia's particular brand of witchcraft works, but if it's anything like mine, that whole interaction leaves a foul taste in my mouth. "But for now," I continue, crimping pastry closed as the oven warms, "we make a meat pie." How stupid of me to think that floury cookies with hints of mint would be sufficient to quell the fiery wrath of a demon. On this, Horace was right. The beast craves meat and blood and fire. Its very appearance and stench are an expression of the things it hungers for. I sought to soothe anger made flesh, but that's not the itch it desires scratched. Oh no, I saw it for myself. Only after bathing around in the blood and bones of Horace Mitchell did the hellhound slow down. All I need is to exaggerate the effect. This is another recipe pulled from the Dufour cookbook. It took shockingly little time for me to find what I was looking for inside the grimoire upon my return to the Aquilo. Self-directed anger fueled my search, and it was as if the book, or some other influence, guided my hand. My shaky fingers gravitated not towards the pages marked with dried leaves and feathers, but rather those folded at the corner or savagely inserted between their peers. Letters scratched in fading ink spoke of a hot watercress pastry that would fill the belly with meat and the heart with fire. No further instructions were offered, but there was something about the ingredients that spoke to my needs. Chili pepper and cloves, mixed into beef and pork, all of it put together at speeds worthy of a competitive baking show, stirred and molded with every inch of my own frustrations. I was tempted to improvise and include some blood sausage, but I had none at hand. Besides, there's something forbidden already in the preparation of this meal, and messing with the details may not be advisable. "I know you don't want to hear it." Annabelle moves the reluctant animals from her lap. "But I still think you should just get someone to kill that thing for you." "I can't." "Not all demons are Agnes," she says with little of her usual compassion. "Some just need to be put down." A chime from the oven informs me that it is finished warming and is ready for the pie. It's a rough-looking thing, unadorned and with little of the finesse I like to give most of my bakes. This is a blunt weapon, constructed in a time of hurry and need. Nothing like this will ever grace the display window of the Aquilo's counter, nor will it appear on any menu of mine. I can't do that. My calf aches as I crouch to open the oven door. Air, hot as the hellhound's breath, greets me, demanding I feed it my next bake. "What happens if you get there and that doesn't work? We almost didn't make it out the last time." "It'll work," I reassure, closing the oven door. The impact of Annabelle's hand, flat-palmed on the counter, sets the tip jar and register to rattle. The coffee machine spits out a small cloud of steam in protest, and the little menagerie of animals I rescued from Horace Mitchell's place all stand, ears pricked and alert. "What if it doesn't work, Miriam?" I don't think I've heard Annabelle be this. What would this mood of hers be? Angry? Afraid? She stares me down as if the very weight of her eyes could crush me into agreeing with her. "What happens if you go there, throw some pie around, and the hellhound, or whatever you want to call it, ignores it? And then it goes after you. What then?" "Then I'm dead. And all the things I've grown attached to in Aquilo are lost to me. but I've sampled that kind of inaction little more than a few hours ago, and I did not find it to my liking. I can't do nothing. No one's asking you to do nothing. But there are what, 2, 3 people who claim that this is their business? Pass the buck, Miriam. Annabelle runs her fingers through her hair as she pleads with me. I can call Mom. I'm sure she'd be more than happy to handle this. Hell, maybe it'd give her something to talk about with me. My therapist would love that. Bags of flour and dirty bowls wait for me on the counter, and I busy my hands picking them up. How do I tell Annabelle that everything she offers tempts me? How do I explain how much I would love to hand this over for someone else to handle? But come the equinox, the same parade will repeat. The gate opens and spills forth demons. Most get cut down, but some get through. Things can't go on this way. Can they? Take Dragon home, Annabelle. I've got this. I roll the top of a bag of flour and grab a handful of utensils to drop in the sink. I wait for either another argument from Annabelle or the sound of the door chimes telling me she left. Everything will be okay. At least, that's what I tell myself. The forest greets me like an old friend, warm with the orange light of the rising sun. It's going to be a beautiful day, and for many, a great time to head outdoors and do some hiking or walk down Rue Principale for some small-town shopping. I expect that Gregoire, the young man who sells ice cream from a cooler on his bicycle, will make a killing this afternoon. Maybe, if everything works out, I too will get to do some business later today. I'll still be exhausted and surely reeling from whatever is about to transpire, but what better place to find solace than behind the counter and in the kitchen of my coffee shop? Last chance to head home, buddy. William the cat has followed me from the Aquilo all the way to the edge of the forest. When he ran out of the cafe as I opened the back door, I expected him to scurry home to his owner. Perhaps he would be reporting back my plans, keeping his mistress abreast of my actions. More likely, I suspect he would have curled up in a warm corner and taken a nap. Neither option would come to pass. Instead, the orange cat followed me through Richard Pickering's field, never within arm's reach, but always in line of sight. Suit yourself. Truth be told, I'm glad for the company. I would normally have wanted Annabelle with me, or Gulliver. Eric would also have been a welcome sidekick on this adventure. As is too often the case, far too often, I'm on my own against a demon. Seeing how these rare but dramatic moments are fraught with risk and danger, it's probably for the best that I don't bring so many friends along. After all, last time we ventured out as a group like that, Eric damn near lost a leg. Now, walking through these woods, which are becoming increasingly familiar recently, I realize that this is better. Fate would have it that I'm the inevitable linchpin in these adventures. If anything goes wrong, as it is bound to happen eventually, the responsibility will lie with me. Horace lost his life because of his own actions, but I can't say the same for Eric's leg. It will hopefully heal well enough, but even that was a high price to pay and one I would not ask of anyone again. Best I go at it alone. Or at least, that was the plan. Pastels are usually not the best camouflage to wear in a forest, especially in this part of the world. The dark greens of fir and pines, along with the deep shadows of thick foliage, do nothing to mask the presence of mint greens and sunflower yellows. Even in the morning light, I can still easily see the bundle of knitted wool making its way between the trees. "You ditched me," Ophelia complains, breaking the serene silence of the forest. "You ditched me and took my cat." "I had bigger concerns," I answer without breaking stride. "And your cat followed me back." As if summoned, the orange tabby jumps out of the undergrowth and onto a fallen trunk. Tail and head held high, he gives both his mistress and me a dismissive look before running off again. A creative mind could assume that by his behavior, William is giving confirmation of my version of events. You still left me to deal with all those animals in Meredith's house. We were in this together, Miriam. Oh, no. I stop, facing her to make my point. We are not. All you do is threaten and belittle me. Well, I've got this well in hand. You've got your cat. Now go home. She sneers, frowning in a way that makes folds on her nose. It's a mix of curiosity and disgust that I see far too often on her features. You're going to face that demon again, aren't you? And you're going alone? What did you bring this time? Apple tarts and brownies? The sheer condescension coming off her is enough to make a nun swear. Did she have to take a class on how to be this much of a patronizing bitch? One would be tempted to imagine her diploma proudly hung on the wall of her living room for all to admire. None of your business, I snarl, turning to walk off. That does not sound like the kind of confidence that can challenge a demon. 2 quick strides and she catches up to me, walking by my side with only her huge purse to separate us. Her presence in this forest is like a pistachio meringue on a porterhouse steak. Let's go then, she adds. Show me where this demon is. You'll see how things are done. How frustrating to have to share this risk with such an irritating person. She's like too much vinegar in a salad dressing or caramel crystallizing in the pan instead of browning. Most of all, I lament that I'll have one more life to worry about besides my own, negating the very reason I came here alone in the first place. Have you ever done this before? I ask, adjusting the strap on my bag. But I get no answer. Even after a moment passes, the only sound out of Ophelia is her labored hiking between trees. Take a quick glance to see the jaw on her round face clenched. Maybe if I was a better listener, I could hear her teeth grind. I think I have my answer. Tempted to ask about Gulliver, I struggled to formulate the question. Talking to Ophelia is as delicate as watching a souffle rise. Accusations that she's manipulating her boyfriend with witchcraft would not be well received. It's a strange kind of fortune that William interrupts my musing. Hissing and growling, the orange cat places himself sideways between Ophelia and a patch of young pines. His back round and ears pulled back, he looks ready for a fight. Is that what familiars do? Act as guardians for their master and owners? If that's the case, I'm sorry to discover that Brioche is a very poor familiar indeed. The smell of the hellhound is still a harbinger of its arrival, but it's starting to lose the edge it once held. Sure, the hair on the back of my neck rises at the putrescence, and the charred meat toys at my hunger, both tempting and revolting. There's an added quality to the foreboding odor, though. Something that wasn't there before and I struggle to identify. There's a cooking relation to it that I can't put my finger on. All right. I drop my bag to the forest floor and start undoing the straps. I hope you're ready. Ophelia doesn't seem to share my combative attitude. I wouldn't say she's standing brave, not exactly. Her back is straight and her feet no more than an inch apart. Both hands grab onto her purse straps tightly as she watches, unblinking, the direction William is facing. Like a tourist paralyzed by a tropical storm on the horizon, she looks dazed and awestruck. The demon dog doesn't make us wait long for its arrival. Still limping, but in a far less timid way, it pushes the young pines aside, unsatisfied with walking between them. The smell of boiling sap mixes with the already unpleasant aroma of cooked flesh, turning my stomach. Barking and growling from the beast translates into a wave of heat directed at us. "Oh, Mother," Ophelia whispers. Her feet wobble and she takes a step back. Her left hand finds her mouth, covering it in shock. I see why. The hellhound, after these few hours, is not done with Horace Mitchell. The old man's skull, partially defleshed, seems stuck to one of the monster's tusked fangs, like a grotesque piece of food caught between its teeth. That's the smell. Atop the burden of charred and cooking offal and gore, there's the smell of Mr. Mitchell's fresh blood. Well, I've got fragrances of my own, and I waste no time in bringing them to bear. Strong spices and peppers, married to perfection with clove and butter, waft up from my bag as I pop open a plastic container. Still warm and smelling absolutely delicious, my hot watercrust meat pie is a fierce competition for the smell of the forest. Pies and tarts again? Bits of uncertainty taint Ophelia's objection. That's your plan to kill a demon? I take my single piping hot pie in my hands and walk up to stand between William and the hellhound. The cat looks baffled by my actions, but does not stand down. That's the thing you don't get, Ophelia. I'm not trying to kill it. I'm trying to tame it. This is the moment. I can feel the wrath of the hellhound reaching out to me, touching me. It makes the tip of my fingers tingle, and I swear to the mother that the demon, the pie, and my hands all form a single conduit at the moment. We've become a metaphysical pipe where hate flows freely from one end to the other. Images of unfathomable violence course through my mind like afterthoughts. So overwhelming is the experience that I fail to notice when Ophelia springs into action. Did the demon's essence touch her too? Or did her attack come from her own well-established disdain of Dufour witches and our methods? I don't know, but she ruins everything. Without a word, Ophelia marches forth and slaps the meat pie out of my hand. The connection is severed, and whatever understanding I might have gained from it is lost. The pie, my key to taming the hellhound, my last chance to save it from its nature, splatters into a steaming mess of meat and crust on the forest floor. My hatred for Ophelia in that moment has nothing supernatural about it. My wrath, hot as lava, is smelted from my own heart without influence from the demon. You idiot! Do you know what you've just done? Her stance alone tells me that she indeed knows. Whether it's an ego thing or a lack of confidence in my ability, or likely both, Ophelia will not allow me to attempt taming the hellhound, which leaves us in a precarious predicament. You can't just make friends with a demon, Miriam. She stands in front of me, rifling through her purse. Meredith tried, and it got her killed. Whatever it is that Ophelia is digging for, it won't be enough to save us from the hellhound. Fortunately for her, I've seen this particular beast pounce more than once. While busy looking for whatever knitting magic she plans to conjure, she fails to see the sign, and it's only because of 1 part ability and 9 parts luck that I managed to pull Ophelia out of the demon's rampaging path. Her hair is blown to the wind by the rushing of the hellhound as it crashes behind us. My fists are balled around the straps of her purse and the sleeves of her sweater, dragging her along. Come on, I urge, forcing her to make a hasty retreat. Unless you want to wind up like Mr. Mitchell. Stunned more than afraid, Ophelia does pick up her pace and get in step with my own haphazard escape. We stumble and trip over twigs and rocks, but she will not stop digging through her purse. At long last, just as the hellhound shakes off the failed attack and prepares for a fresh assault, Ophelia finds what she was looking for. A goddamn cat toy. Crocheted like the one I stole from her to track down William, it looks like a little cartoon duck with a bright yellow bill and deep emerald head. Tossing it backwards, it manages to catch the hellhound's attention. While I think that this will be a fleeting distraction, something about the toy attracts the demon's hostility. Magic or luck, and I'm not inclined to wait and find out which, gave us our window of egress, and we run. How do you know Meredith Mitchell was killed by a demon? I ask between breaths. Now's not the time, but I refuse to die not knowing. I give knitting workshops, Miriam, Ophelia answers, managing condescension despite the labored breathing. I see every old lady in Aquillow at least twice a week. She wanted me to knit her a magic leash for it. I have to admit, I hadn't thought of that, and on the surface, it doesn't seem like a bad idea. Ophelia clearly disagrees. "What people like her and you need to understand," she continues, "is that you can't tame a demon. That's how— Whoa." The forest, like a funnel, has once again led me to its metaphorical heart. As if called, I keep coming back to this place, the familiarity of it transcending the many visits. The bramble portal, or a thistle door, whatever polite name I want to give the Hellgate, it seems to have a hold on me in times of distress. It's also having quite the effect on Ophelia. Her pause could very well be our doom. Her toy did not hold the hellhound's attention quite long enough, and I can hear it, growling and spitting, trampling the forest as it chases us. Fury fuels the pursuit, allowing it to ignore the damaged limb. "This is it," Ophelia whispers, more to herself than anyone. "Not now," I insist. But it's too late. The hellhound, massive and burning, rams sideways into a maple tree, pushing some of its roots out of the ground. All that only to stop its galloping run and face us. This is where we make our stand. Is it fitting that we're going to die in front of the Hellgate? Are there consequences to this demise that I lack the knowledge to comprehend? I've never been much afraid of death, but knowing there's a literal hell and that we stand on the threshold works wonders to reconfigure my thoughts on the subject. "Okay, Ophelia," I mumble, a failed attempt to remain brave. "Show me what you've got." But the knitter's focus is split. Faced with the tangible threat of her imminent demise, a death that would be slick with bloody violence, Ophelia still can't tear away from the portal of branches. Only when the hellhound barks its victory at having cornered us does she snap out of it. Okay, she stammered, nerves playing havoc on her coherence. "I've got this. I've trained for this." Ophelia pries open her purse once again, like an old lady looking for a mint while a mugger has a pistol trained on her. She better pull out some unbelievable magics from there. Though I relish seeing her fail, I think I'd rather live through the process. Pettiness can wait. There's no eureka moment, no bright second when her face lights up, having found the miracle tool we desperately need. The beast lunges, almost gleefully, in our direction. The skull of Horace Mitchell is the last thing I see before I'm thrown to the ground by the monstrous bulk of the demon. Except things didn't go as planned for the hellhound either. Exposed muscles pinning me to the forest floor scald my skin with their unholy heat, but before I even gain my full senses again, I can feel them cooling. There was a detonation, a clamor swallowed by the demon's growl. I can hear it still echoing between the trees. Next to me, Ophelia too is weighed down by the beast, caught in its unmoving grasp. Face to face with what used to be Mr. Mitchell, she looks frozen and traumatized. I push with all my might, failing to free myself from the monster's bulk. I'm a second from giving up when the weight of it suddenly lifts, rolling the beast on its side and off of Ophelia and me. "Mayor Byrne?" I whisper, the breath still struggling to find my lungs. Towering over me, wearing a black dress skirt and a white blouse, her hair perfectly coiffed and her face an expression of near Amazonian might, the mayor of Aquillow, U.S. side, looks down on me like a conquering hero. In her left hand, held with her 3 remaining fingers, a pistol that is equal parts antiquity and jewelry, still smoking from the barrel. The many crucifixes depicted with gold accents on the weapon do not fail to get my attention. "Ms. Dufour," the mayor says, extending her right hand. "You're lucky I found you in time." Shaking, a tremor that goes deep into my bowels and threatens to make me collapse, I get to my feet. Looking around, I see that Ophelia is managing to get up on her own, spurred by disgust and panic, eager to get away from the remains of Horace Mitchell. "And you're lucky to have such good friends." She steps aside, allowing me to see Annabelle, half hidden behind a tree. The poor girl looks almost apologetic, as if her actions were a betrayal. And perhaps there's part of me that feels that way. She went behind my back and, despite my pleas, recruited someone for the sole purpose of killing the demon. With a gentle wave of my hand, I beckon her over. Before I can fall, she catches me and holds me up. It's a trap, however, one that I improvised for the occasion. Her arms holding me up, I can freely wrap mine around her shoulders and press her tightly against me. Bringing my lips as close to her as possible, close enough that they brush against her earrings, I whisper, "Thank you. Oh my God, thank you." I can be dumb and stubborn sometimes, but it's hard not to argue that this time, I was wrong. Once I feel the embrace returned, I look back at Mayor Byrne. The woman is busy inspecting her kill, pushing at it with the tip of her heel, looking for a reaction. The weapon is still in her hand, ready to fire. If anyone in Aquilo knows the dangers a demon poses, it would be her. And thank you, Mayor Byrne. She doesn't look back, but I can see a bit of a smile on her face. Born of satisfaction or pride, it speaks of how glad she is in her actions. "I'm just happy I got here in time," she says, pointing the gun at the demon's head. "You've no idea what strings were pulled to save you today." She doesn't elaborate further, pulling the trigger on her pistol instead. "I'm sorry," Annabelle says. Again. It's been a few days since the ordeal in the woods, and things have yet to feel normal. You can stop saying that. We're sitting in the dining room of the Aquilo. Well, Annabelle and Eric are, along with Roberts the raccoon, I suppose. For my part, I'm fretting about the kitchen and counter, cleaning and tidying up, preparing the cafe for this most unusual day. "But you're still mad." I look up from the busbin in my hands, laden with the previous day's dishes and leftovers, all of which will need to be cleaned before people start showing up at the front door. All three of them are looking at me, expecting something. Even Roberts, his voluminous rump plopped on the table, seems confused by what's going on. "Not at you," I explain. "I'm mad at myself. Do you know, I've barely slept since we came back from those woods. Every time I close my eyes, I keep seeing more ways one of you gets murdered by a demon because of me. Not just you two, but Helen and Gulliver and Olivia. I see Vicky that day we exorcised her, and I see Sarah Payne behind the bank. It's not just the wrath demon either, but all manner of ugly, terrible things. Monsters I don't even have a name for yet." Eric stands up and makes a show of walking to me, showing off how well he's healing. He takes the busbin from my hands, walking it towards the kitchen. "But I'm fine, Mims. We both are." "Horace wasn't your fault," Annabelle adds, a futile attempt to reassure. "And if you're worried about Mom, there's a reason I went to Marie Belle instead. She promised she'd keep as much from my mother as she can." I nod my understanding, but it's not that simple. Allowing Eric to go and fill the dishwasher, I head over to the table to pick up Roberts. The lazy bum barely registers when I lift him. With a huff, I put him over my shoulder, feeling every ounce of him pressing on my spine. "But she had to kill the hellhound," I explained, still full of sorrow, "and she had to borrow an inquisitor's weapon to do so." Annabelle stands, guessing what I'm about to do. She walks over and opens the back door, allowing me to carry the fat raccoon outside. We sit on the concrete steps, looking over at the dumpster. I put Roberts in my lap and turn him towards his old home, my hands keeping a firm hold of him, gauging his reaction. Will he recognize the place? Is the trauma of what happened here going to affect him, or will he struggle to break free and go back to his family? For now, he's content to lean back on my chest and look around, sniffing at the air. "Eric told me you were looking for an apartment in town?" I ask, watching the dumpsters for any sign of movement. "I guess things aren't improving with your mother?" "Au contraire," Annabelle says. "Don't get me wrong, it's far from perfect, but I think moving out is only going to help. You know what they say, distance makes the heart grow fonder. Let's hope it works for mother-daughter relationships. I'm still not sure what went wrong with you two." Annabelle shrugs, reaching over to pet Roberts on the head and scratch him behind the ears. "It's hard to explain." I nod. Some things are nuanced, or sometimes even when they're not, they're difficult to confide. I can only hope that Annabelle understands that when and if she wants to talk about it, I'll be there. Roberts twitches, his tiny clawed paws digging into my pant legs as he tenses. The cover of one of the dumpsters is pried open from within, and 10 tiny blue orbs appear in pairs from underneath. Before long, the raccoons of Aquilo poke out to investigate. All 5 ring-tailed bandits pour out of the garbage bin, crawling with apprehension towards us. Their noses high in the air, they all look around and about, suspicious of what they see. Brioche is the only one who seems unafraid, even excited to see her fat brother in my lap. Sporting a fresh ribbon around her neck, the very sight of her tightens my heart. There's another important one I almost lost as a result of my actions. I hear Eric is going to be your roommate?
We decided it was best if he told you.
This time, I smile. It's a little bittersweet. You'd think my own brother would have at least asked if I'd be interested in cohabitation. After all, we're used to living together. On the other hand, that's precisely why he might have chosen Annabelle instead. Don't get on his nerves too much, I tease.
I promise nothing.
We sit in silence for a little while, watching the raccoons as they perform their strange, lengthy ritual of welcome, sniffing at Roberts, especially his new prosthetic, and coming to terms with his return. Eventually, Brioche pulls at his tail until the fattest raccoon has no choice but to climb down for thorough inspection. He's become quite agile on that plastic and metal nub of his. I don't think he'll ever be completely independent again, though. His family has always provided for him anyways, but I'll also need to check up on his leg once in a while, maybe even take him to the vet. It's a good thing he's not exactly difficult to catch.
He's doing good,
Annabelle says, confirming my own impression. Yep, I guess we could leave them to their thing for a little while. I push against my knees as I get up, looking at the dawn casting its long shadows over the alley. My leg is healing well, and though I could use a formal apology from Crimson, the raccoon responsible for my pain, none is forthcoming. I'll have to forgive him on blind faith. Foreboding welcomes me back into the Aquilo. The lights are dim in the dining room, and they won't get any brighter anytime soon. Eric walks out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He's smiling, but it's of brotherly support, not joy. Is it time? He asks. Yeah, I sigh. Better get it over with before the customers arrive.
You sure you want to do this?
Annabelle asks, naked concern in her words. I'm tired of messing up, I say, opening the door to let them out, my siblings. This was supposed to be the year I got my act together and really got a grip on this whole Dufour witch thing. Clearly, I've bitten off more than I can chew, and then I went back for another bite, then another. It's just for a little while, until I sort myself out. Rue Principale is a gorgeous sight this morning. Deep indigo and purple skies brushed with rare streaks of orange, like salmon flesh where stray clouds wander. The Pilvist's cloud hovers alone, catching much of the rising sun, like a monolith hungry for light. The streets and sidewalks are slick with rain from the previous night, reflecting the spectacle from the heavens onto the ground. Perhaps, after this is done, I'll go for a walk. Maybe I'll make it all the way to the Figs Orchard, see what Olivia and Henry are up to this fine morning. If I'm lucky, I might be able to steal some breakfast from their table. I shut the door to the Aquilo behind me, inserting and then turning the key in the lock. Right there, in front of me, now more true than any other time, a sign with big black brush script lettering. Sorry, we're closed. Aquilo is written by J.F. Dubow and narrated and produced by me, Amy Frost. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast platform. Want to support the show? Buy us a coffee. Go to ko-fi.com/Aquilo to donate. Aquilo has a Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Aquilo for details. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under the username Aquilo.
Step right up, one and all, gentlefolk and children of all ages. Not for nearly 3 decades has the small town of Aquilo experienced such wonderment. The spectacle of secrets, the circus of the singular, the carnival of curiosities. That's right, Ariella's Infinite Carousel is coming back after 29 years of absence. Clowns and acrobats and strongmans and more, Ariella has it all. Bring the little ones and your grandparents too. All are welcome, but those of whose innocence be too fragile. For in these tents are things of which you have never seen. Mark your calendars, friends and fellows, for come sundown on October 27th, Aquilo will experience a night like never before.